a man's hormonal cycle is the same every day. So they wake up, there's a burst of testosterone, and then it cycles around. It's the same every single day. A woman's hormonal cycle goes through that in a month. So our creation cycle is not morning to night. It's the beginning of our menstrual cycle all the way through to the end. So hormonally, we're set up differently. What's cool about that, and the reason why I love the work that I do, is that this cycle is also reflected in the seasons and it's reflected in the moon. And it's interesting that we're not educated on that. We're not taught about the moon. We're not taught about the phases of creativity. So one way to look at it is in your follicular phase, we actually have a lot of energy to move forward on an idea. During our ovulation, we're really magnetic. So it's sort of like follicular is like spring. And it's like this burst of energy, and there's everything coming out of the earth. And then our ovulatory phase is a lot like summer. It's all about celebrating, being open, and being the flower that's open to attract the bees to come pollinate the rest of the forest. And then in the fall, our luteal phase, we are actually, this is what they've called PMS, but we're actually just discerning. We're very clear what's working for me, what's not. And then when we're bleeding, actually, it's the only time during the month where the two hemispheres of our brains are connected to each other. And so that means this is the perfect time to get ideas, to birth new projects. And then we go through the cycle again.
Wonderful. So totally think of it as a man brain. But so if I was to make sense, would it be ideal, and if it is making sense, to be able to say, all right, so instead, like how a guy thinks about their day productivity, we should reframe as we work with women. And like I said, I work with a lot of women. They tend to be majority of my teams pretty much all the time. I love working with them. That we should, and maybe it's a really difficult question to ask in a corporate setting, but just because of how much shame is around it, is to go, can we kind of go, how do we set up your monthly routine, if I may, in sort of a daily routine, to go, oh, this is the time when we should have all the meetings around product creation.
Yes.
Here's when we should have meetings around, decision making, whatever the thing is. Is that what you're suggesting?
That is what I'm suggesting to a point. And if you're not bleeding, I believe you can follow the moon. And because the moon goes through the exact same phases as our menstrual cycle, and the moon is a feminine energetic, where the sun rises and sets about the same time every day. It's very masculine. The moon, if you ever tried to track it, it's like over here one night and over here another night. It's changing shape all the time. And it's going through different signs of the zodiac every 2.5 days, when the sun goes through one side of the zodiac in a month. So I suggest, like on my team, when we are creating something, and let's say we feel stuck, I will say, who's bleeding right now? Because you have access to ideas, to sorting everything out. And I'll say, go be in meditation for an hour and sink in for us. Tap in. What do you think we need to do? And I also believe we all have access to that all the time, but we're particularly primed during those moments. And
it's like having a morning routine and saying, oh, you're most productive in the morning.
And I think, we're all trying to human in 2024. So it's not like we can be so rigid about this all the time. But what was helpful for me is, like, let's say I was trying to, teach a live class to 20,000 people, and I'm in my luteal phase. It's just like, it's not going to hit as much, because I'm not going to have as much energy. I'm not going to be as primed for that. So normally, before I understood about feminine cycles, I would beat myself up. I would tell myself that I was just like such a loser. But now I know, like, while I'm in my luteal phase, it's not like the perfect time for me to be leading a webinar for 20,000 people. So I'm just going to cut myself some slack.
So it brings a very interesting topic, because does that mean that if, let's say, and I'm making super practical, sorry about that.
I love the practical application.
But for example, let's say if I was a coach and I was, say, doing a 10,000 person, 5,500 person webinar live, I should plan my launches around my cycle.
I think it's a great thing to do. I plan my launches around my cycle.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's great insight. That's
Yeah.
actually like as a, again, like I said,
Yeah.
as a
And I
practical
plan
person.
them around the moon. And I plan them around the seasons, and I plan them around sacred holidays, because I believe when we can expand the forces of support beyond just our mind, it is so much easier to be successful.